This program is a collaboration of personal opinions and individual free thought. It does not represent the views or narrative of the mainstream corporate media hacks. Viewer discretion is advised.
And here we go.
Taking a stand for your rights, your liberties, and all the bullshit in between. You're listening to Ring the Bell Podcast.
Good evening, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome.
Hello, beautiful bell breakers.
Welcome to the Break the Bell podcast. That is this thing that we do.
Yes, just this little thing.
This little ditty that we do from time to time. Are we live? We are live. I think we're live.
We should be live.
Let me check.
The TV says we're live.
The TV says we're live, but are we live is the real question. Sometimes I wonder what's actually going on because, you know, it's YouTube. Maybe we're not live. We are live. According to this says live. So
perfect.
So we're live. It's Monday night and we're live. We made it 2 weeks in a row.
I know.
It's been a while.
I think we're over the hump.
I wouldn't say that. But we're here tonight, and
Yes.
that's what matters.
Exactly.
Tonight we're talking about cash in closets, or a closet.
Do you have cash in your closet?
I don't have cash. I
No,
wish I had cash in my closet.
I might have
but
a couple quarters, maybe.
You know, it's getting ridiculous. Like what comes out as corruption at the highest political levels. It's just like, really?
Yeah.
Really? That's what you did?
Yeah.
You did that thing and thought you could get away with it?
Yeah. Right.
I mean, we're talking two specific examples. We're talking about Bob Menendez, who's a senator from New Jersey, and then Adam Schiff, who I don't know if you're familiar with Adam Schiff, but he's pretty big into the against corruption. He was the Trump's first impeachment. He was like the head guy in that.
He's very, straight and narrow, honest guy, right?
Honest Abe guy, no corruption.
No.
Apparently, he has some skeletons in his closet too. So, we're going to be discussing those cases. I guess my biggest question of the day is: are all politicians corrupt?
I mean, I think anybody who's been in there longer than say 5 years is yes.
I mean, another reason to impose term limits,
Absolutely,
I guess.
Yeah. And these guys have been in there for a long time.
Right. Now, there's the saying that goes like, power
corrupts.
Power corrupts, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. Now, do you feel that power corrupts, or do you feel that the corrupt are like attracted to power, or power attracts the already, or like the predisposed towards corrupt people?
Yeah, I definitely feel like there's a type. And
there's a certain type that shoots for those political aspirations, and they always end up being the Kevin Spacey.
It's the ones that go in to do good that don't last very long.
Yeah, they don't stick it out, or they don't make it.
Right.
Because they don't play the game right.
Yeah.
And you got to play a certain game in order to get to those levels. And in order to play the game, you've got to be a little fucking corrupt.
You got to be, a little. You got to think like. A good cop has to think like a criminal. A good politician has to think like a bad one.
Or be a bad one. A good cop pretty much has to be
because you got to be
criminal.
thinking like, okay, they're going to try to get you on every turn, right? Even if you're a good guy, they're going to try to get you in some compromising position where you can be blackmailed and then you're fucked.
It's kind of that like good old boys club, like the inner circle we've talked about a lot on the show, where it's like they have to have something on you to allow you into that inner circle so they can blackmail you or something if you ever decide to like step out against the inner circle, they've got something on you. It's kind of like the theories about the Skull and Bones Club, where you get into a coffin and do obscene things to yourself while they, like, I don't know, piss on you or something. I don't know. You've heard the stories where it's just like they take pictures of you doing this like really nasty stuff, and then it's like, if you ever spill the secrets of the Skull and Bones Club, we release these photos. Yeah. So it's kind of like that. It's like you've got to be corrupt for them to allow you into that inner sphere, or they corrupt you to a point where they have something on you. So, and I mean, all this is a big pissing club anyway. Like, every time I hear of another political corruption scandal, it's just like, okay, so what are you doing that you're trying to keep them from seeing while you point your finger over there? Because it's always the ones that point the finger that end up like falling into their own corruption thing.
And that was the first thing I thought of when I saw these cases. Two thoughts crossed my mind. Number one, who'd they piss off? Right. Like, who are they not playing ball with that someone's like, okay, well, fine, we'll release this. And number two, what are they distracting from? Like, there must be a bigger corruption case there that they don't want you to see. Right.
Well, again, like, Adam Schiff is the anti-Trump figure, so it's just like, obviously the Republicans or like the Trump circle is going to be like, oh, look at him, he's got his corruption too. He can't say much. And then this Bob Menendez guy, obviously, I mean, he's from New Jersey. Obviously, he's corrupt.
Like every politician in New Jersey.
Exactly. Derek is here. He says he's late. Well, Derek,
so are we.
We were kind of too. I thought I was running early, and then I ran upstairs, and I was like, I'm gonna do a few things before, and then all of a sudden you were here. I'm like, oh, it's time. I'm late again, even though I was early. So that's the stuff we're going to talk about, the corruption. I'm going to talk about these two examples specifically, and then we'll probably do some philosophical debate on, this whole, like, does power corrupt, or do the corrupt crave the power? I don't believe everybody that goes for those roles are corrupt. I do feel like, and we'll get into this later, I do feel like people do go in with good intentions, but I mean, even the most well-intended, you get into that spot where it's just like, well, it's just a couple dollars here. I mean, nobody's gonna miss it. Right. I'll make sure I give it back after I gamble it away. Right. Then every time you do that, it's a little easier to do that, and then even the best fall into that corruption. I feel like it's all corrupt too. Like, I don't want to get too far ahead. Yeah, we'll get into the case.
You ever watch Mr. Smith Goes to Washington? Jimmy Stewart.
No,
old one, classic, really good.
I'm not 80, so no, sorry.
Anyways, so he was a scout leader, and he decides to run for representative of his state. I think it's Tennessee. And so he goes there, and so his big plan is he wants to create like a boys' camp. And so this piece of land he has designated, apparently lobbyists have decided they want to build a dam there. And so when he finds out about it, after all the promises he's made and what these people have promised him, he's like, well, I'm going to fight you. Well, so then all of a sudden they start releasing in the newspapers and radio and stuff about how he's been embezzling this money that kids have been sending him to create this camp. And so the lobbyist won't let like any media outside the state into the state. Right. And they're blocking all like other forms. So it's making him look like super corrupt. And so
was he super corrupt?
He was not. He was trying to fight it. And so he ends up going on a what's it called when you talk all night, filibuster, to try to to kind of get to people and stuff. And they're trying to block that and stuff. So
well, now the twist in the movie would have been if he turned around and used that money for his own legal defense. Right. And he's like, well, it's still for a good cause, but at the end of the day, it's still not going to show that even the best of us can be corrupt. The best at that level are in some way corrupt.
So the senior senator, the guy that he idolized, who is a friend of his dad, they called him the White Knight, because he always fought for these causes. Well, he was totally corrupt, and so he was working against him behind the scenes.
Yeah. So, I want to get into how much corruption is too much corruption. And we'll
Aren't
get
we
into
there?
some examples. Well, I'm just saying, like, at what level, because they bring up the Goldilocks
Right.
laws in all of this. It's like, well, how much is too much? How much is just the right amount of corruption? Where, I mean, yeah, it's probably a slippery slope, but really, was it a crime?
Right.
So I want to get into all that stuff. Before we do, obviously, we got to mention, check us out all over the social medias, because that's where we are.
Yeah.
I mean,
what we do.
we're social, and we're
Kind of media.
we're in. Yeah, sure. Check us out all over the social medias. You can find us all across them at the handle @BreakTheBellPod. Share us far and wide across the land of X and Facebook and Instagram and wherever you find us. Make sure you share us with your grandmas, because that's ideal. Our ideal demographic is the grandmas.
Wow. Okay.
So
okay.
that's why we go on a
That's
7.
why I mentioned Jimmy Stewart. I figured that's
Exactly.
a Sherlock,
Yes.
right?
That's guaranteed grandma
Yes.
content there. So share us with your grandmas, share us with your neighbors, and share us with your cats, because I got a cat this week. Yesterday.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Shut
Welcome
the
to
fuck
the club.
up. I hate fucking cats, and I forgot why I hated cats. My family's surprised. Like, I DJ'd a wedding Saturday night. I didn't get home till like 3:30.
Exhausted.
I am dead tired. They got up kind of early, and I'm just like, I'm not gonna be able to sleep. Well, then she comes in and she's like, we're gonna go out quick. We have a surprise for you. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. And so I was just happy they all left so I could freaking
right.
sleep.
You're like, they appreciate me.
Yeah.
They really do.
Couple hours later, I got good sleep, and I hear them come in. I was like, oh, I wonder what I'm thinking they maybe brought me breakfast or
Right?
something,
That would
you
be
know?
the nice, decent family thing to do.
And they come in the room and drop a kitten on me. I'm just like, what the fuck is this? And at first I'm like, oh, that's kind of cute.
Yeah.
I forgot why I hated cats. The thing kind of slept and purred all afternoon. It was
That's how they
cute.
get ya.
And then 10 o'clock rolls around, and he's kind of sleeping. Then all of a sudden, he perks up. He sits up, and he turns into a fucking nighttime asshole.
Mhm.
And I didn't fall asleep till like 1:30 in the morning. I finally threw him in the bathroom and was like, shut the fuck up and go to sleep. And then I remembered why I hate cats, because they're assholes.
Yes.
So,
yes.
got a cat. So share it with your cats. That's it. We're going to get into this intro video. And when we come back, we're going to talk about cash in closets, cash in freezers, corruption, and the political scheme in general.
American politics.
So, America, or just world.
Yeah, that's true. It's
just
got
politics.
Its world. Yeah,
Yep.
that's true.
So watch this video. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
What did you say?
You talking to me?
What the heck are you talking about?
What did you say?
What did you say? What did you say?
Are you talking to me?
Are you talking to me? Are you talking to me?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
What did you say?
What did you say?
Are you talking to me?
Well, maybe he was talking to me.
What did you say?
Talk to me.
What in heaven's name are you talking about?
Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me, baby.
What did you just say?
What did you say?
You listen to me. Are you talking to me?
Are you talking to me?
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
We're back. So, Bill,
Yes.
is there even an ounce of possibility to hold a higher government position and not be corrupt?
No. No, I
So you
don't
don't
so.
So you think Josh Smith gets corrupt if he becomes president?
Well, I don't think he would become president because of that.
Because of that, yeah.
Yes,
Because he's
because-
not corrupt enough.
Yes, yeah, because I obviously, and you always hear this phrase, pay to play. right?
Yes.
And that's how our government works.
Right. So you got to pay a lot of money and a lot of your soul,
Or favors
and
a lot of your soul.
Yes,
exactly.
To get to those positions.
Yeah.
So I asked the question. Solid answer starting out, and we'll ask it again probably, and we'll discuss it more after we go through all this. Is it the corrupt that go after those positions, or does the position corrupt? Do you think it's solely like a certain personality type that goes after it, or do you think there's a possibility that the best intentions get corrupt by the position as well?
Yeah, I definitely feel. I think it's rarer for a good person to seek an office where they want to try to do some good. I would say maybe 2%. Right. Where most people, I agree with you, is there's that personality type where people are like, yeah, I want this power.
I want power.
Yeah.
It's like the ones that are the only ones that stand any sort of a chance are the ones that are like, I don't want this freaking job.
Right. Yes.
But something needs to change.
Right.
And those ones are, at the end of the day, don't get to those levels.
Right.
Except for Donald Trump, but I don't feel like he was actually that.
Yeah, I don't think
like
so.
He was like, I mean, even since the 80s, it's like, I don't want to be president. I don't ever want, like, why would I want to be president? But I got to do my good deed and become I got to save the country from the country.
But even him, he was working off of a savior complex, right?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Only
Only I can fix it. Nobody else can fix. I feel like in the 80s, he at least presented it better. Yeah. Like, I need to do this because something needs to happen. I don't freaking want to do this. But then in the 2000s, when he finally did, after teasing for 25 plus years, in the 2000s to 2016, whatever, it was just like, I am going to be the best president in the history of presidents. Right. It's like, how did you get from, you know, Oprah, I just don't want to do this, but this country just sucks right now, and we somebody needs to step up, and I feel like nobody else is stepping up. Two, only I can win. I got the bigliest plan. It's like, what the fuck happened in that? Did he just stop censoring himself? Or did he lose brain cells from too much cocaine over the year? Like
too many sycophants kissing his ass.
Yeah, probably. Derek says absolute power corrupts absolutely, and it trickles down from there. Yeah, that's probably true. So let's so I guess my next question. A lot of questions early on here. Yeah. I kind of asked, but didn't allow you to answer. How much is too much corruption? Like, if you allow a business or somebody that's obviously trying to schmooze on you, if you allow them to take you to dinner and buy you a nice fancy dinner and talk about like this is kind of what we need. I mean, some people would say that's a form of corruption. That's a little bit of bribery there. Yeah. I mean, just like, you know, we really want you to do some favors for us. And even if it's not like, hey, scratch my back, you scratch, it's just like, hey, come enjoy a dinner with us. Right. It's on us. Now, I mean,
but I
don't necessarily, I mean, if it's happening constantly.
Yeah. I think to be fair, you have to turn that down, right? You have to be like, look, you know, I'm a servant of the people. I don't feel comfortable you buying me something or giving me something.
Right.
You know, I'll take care of myself. I appreciate the sentiment, but I'll take care of myself.
I mean, to an extent, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. Like, I mean, it's just like a business deal. It's like you're trying to go after a client and you take them out for a round of golf. Obviously, your intentions of paying for that round of golf was to get their, not necessarily to get their business, but to kind of get you a foot in the door at least. And I mean, I took ethics classes in college and shit that they were like, oh, you, as a business that is unethical and blah blah blah. It's like businesses do that shit all the time though, and I mean, nobody's gonna be like, that's the most fucking corrupt government, or not government, corporation, because they took so and so out, a potential client out, for a round of golf. Yes, that's in the same kind of ballpark.
Yeah,
but I'm not gonna. I mean, I guess maybe in a way my head says I'm kind of guilty of the Goldilocks thing that I'm talking, like how much, like, is that corrupt though, or is that just kind of like, maybe a little, I don't know.
I think
from a business standpoint,
yeah.
Instead of politics, go
Yeah.
from a business standpoint. You own a business,
Right.
or you're trying to get a client in, and you're like, you know what, come sit down for dinner with me. Drinks are on me, or whatever.
But the difference is that business is for profit, right? Whereas politics is not supposed to be for
I was going to say politics are definitely for profit because they're making a
Right.
lot more profit than I am in the private sector.
But I definitely feel like, it could be a slippery slope, right? Like, oh, you buy me dinner, and then it's like, oh, well, how about what, you want to come to Florida with us? Just
Right.
kind of hang out for the weekend, maybe do a round of golf, and so you're thinking, oh, okay, well maybe I have a relationship here, right? Maybe I can do some good with this, and then I think from there it can quickly escalate.
Well, yeah, it's like the escalation thing. Like all of a sudden, receiving trips on a private jet. It's like, hey, you can fly on my private jet. I mean, that doesn't even sound like they're giving you much. It's just like you're transporting, but still. Yeah. That's receiving from somebody that might that's trying to benefit from you, to having your house paid for. It's like, oh, don't, like, look, here's I got this property, you can come live. To like massive campaign donations. It's just like, I feel like lobbying is like the gate, the gate watchers of corruption. It's like they allow what corruption comes in and what corruption goes. Like the corporations obviously pay the lobbyists. The lobbyists donate to campaigns and shit, or they don't. The lobbyist, they shouldn't be allowed to donate to campaigns. Lobbyists shouldn't be allowed to, but they do. And then the lobbyists like go on behalf to and present the corporate interest to the politicians, when in reality they're all just paying and playing and all that shit.
But you get the lobbyists like and like, hey, I really like what you were saying in your speech or in your town hall. I'd really like to throw you like maybe a dinner, kind of a fundraising dinner, so we can get money for you, right? And by just being there with some of the people, it's like they figure, okay, you're here to play, right?
Exactly. And it's like, even though it's like I'm not contributing to you, I'm just throwing this this donation dinner. But I mean, you're paying for the dinner, which is upwards of, or the
$7,000 plate or something, or something like that.
Well, then the person that's throwing it's probably paid over $1 million to host the stupid
they're
thing.
Gonna
so
expect something.
Yeah, exactly. And like nobody is especially in that realm, is doing anything for free. It's not like, oh yeah, just come play around of golf. It's cool. It's on me. You don't have to vote the way I vote, but but you like golf, right?
Yeah, yeah. You scratch my back, I scratch your back.
Right, exactly. So tonight, like I mentioned in the pre-show, tonight is a tale of two congressmen. One being Bob Menendez, who is the senator from New Jersey. He's apparently one of like the highest profile Democrat senators. He's like one of the most powerful Democrat senators out there. And then Adam Schiff, who we've all heard Adam Schiff stories, and we know who Adam Schiff is. But those two, they've both been at the forefront of corruption cases, like of convicting other politicians of corruption.
And Schiff is a big one that he's always speaking out about earmarks.
Right. And his whole case right now is about earmarks.
Yes, which is ironic.
Yeah, but both of them have been involved in high-profile cases of corruption against political opponents and stuff. Yeah. So now that the finger's pointing back, it always seems like the ones that are like, oh, corruption, like Nancy Pelosi, for example, like screaming about Trump's corruption, and like her husband is in the stock market, which her policies directly impact, and there's no possible inside trading going on there, because why would that ever happen? Even though she votes no to the Congress people not being able to kind of play in the stock markets, she always votes no against that, because that's where her wealth comes from. Why would she vote?
Exactly.
Why would she vote contrary to that? Even even Gavin Newsom has the smarts to warn about cracking down on other politicians' corruptions. Like, he came out and he's like, said to the Republicans a couple weeks ago, he's like, yeah, you might want to be careful if you're pointing the fingers, because you start coming after, like, Joe Biden was what he was talking about. If you go after Joe Biden, then you're going to have to go against basically all politicians, and not just politicians, but also every, like, private sector corporation. He's like basically saying there's corruption fucking everywhere. Right. So leave it alone is what he was saying. So he was at least smart enough to be like, you don't want to open up this, you don't want to kick this hornet's nest, because we're all probably going to go down if we start pointing fingers. So at least he was smart enough to warn against that, even though he's just as crooked as basically what he was saying. He's like, I'm crooked, you're crooked, we're all crooked. Yeah. But then you get people like Adam Schiff and Bob Menendez. They're like, you're fucking corrupt. Yeah. You're fucking corrupt. And all of a sudden the tables are turned. It's just like, hey, what's with the gold bars and the cash in your it's stuffed in jacket pockets in your closet, like to the tune of like, was it $500,000 or something like that, just hidden in his jacket pockets and shit. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about these. Let's start first with the big one right now, which is Bob Menendez, which for being the most powerful senator, I don't know too much about him.
Yeah, I had never heard of him before.
Yeah, I mean, that's how much we do our homework. We don't even know the most powerful senators. So I've got this article from CNN here. Let's see if it'll pull up. Just thinking about it. There it is. It's titled, Senator Bob Menendez and wife are indicted on bribery charges. The DOJ seizes gold bars and $500,000. Now, this one's interesting because it's not just like lobbyists or corporate interests giving him money. It's like foreign agents giving him money,
which is even scarier.
Yeah. Says New Jersey Democratic Senator Bob Menendez was charged on Friday with corruption-related offenses for the second time in 10 years.
Second time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Second time in 10 years that this has come up. And obviously he's denied. He's like, you didn't give me the first time. What makes you think you're going to give me this time? Right. Obviously I'm innocent. Menendez and his wife, Nadine Arcelanian Menendez, are accused of accepting hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes in exchange for the senator's influence, according to the newly unsealed federal indictment.
I mean, isn't that basically what Biden's done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Prosecutors allege the bribes include gold, cash, home mortgage payments, compensation for a low or no-show job, and a luxury vehicle. What's a low or no-show job? I don't know what that means. Probably a compensation for like putting people in like certain
different
positions, jobs,
like interns and stuff like that.
This is the second set of corruption charges levied against Menendez by the Justice Department in a decade. He previously fought off conspiracy, bribery, and honest services fraud related to alleged personal favors. Menendez is up for re-election next year. He has been in the Senate since 2006. Senate Democrat caucus rules will force Menendez to step aside as chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, but he can still serve on the panel. Menendez slammed the indictment in a statement. He said, "For years, forces behind the scenes have repeatedly attempted to silence my voice and dig my political grave." Who does he sound like? Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Since this investigation was leaked nearly a year ago, there has been an active smear campaign of anonymous sources and innuendos to create an air of impropriety where none exists. The excesses of these prosecutors is apparent. They have misrepresented the normal work of a congressional office. On top of that, not content with making false claims against me, they have attacked my wife for long-standing friendship she had before she and I even met. Menendez also previously set up a legal defense fund. Beginning in April, his wife sold gold bars worth as much as $400,000, according to the senator's most recent financial disclosure form. So here's the accusations, according to CNN. Menendez is charged with 3 alleged crimes, including being on the receiving end of a bribery conspiracy. The conspiracy counts also charge his wife Nadine and 3 people described as New Jersey associates and businessmen. Weil, Hannah, Jose Uribe, and Fred Dybes. A lawyer for Nadine Menendez said she denies any wrongdoing and would fight the federal indictment. Bob Menendez and the other defendants will appear in court 10:30 Eastern Time on Wednesday. The group is accused of coordinating to use Menendez's power as U.S. Senator to benefit them personally and to benefit Egypt.
Interesting.
Doesn't say a whole lot in this about Egypt, so we'll get back to that. But I feel like CNN kind of glosses over some of the
it
facts.
Seems like that was kind of a big...
That's kind of a big part of it, and they're like, using his power to, like, his powerful position to benefit Egypt. It's like, just like,
Egypt?
Benefit Egypt,
Oh.
yeah. In the indictment, prosecutors accuse Menendez of trying to sway the president's choice of top federal prosecutor in New Jersey to benefit one of the business associates and pressure the Department of Agriculture to protect a business monopoly another contact had from Egypt. So
it seems like some really serious accusations.
Yeah, but it's worse than that when it like they're still glossing over the Egypt part.
Well, yes.
The Department of Agriculture in 2019 had contacted Egypt to object to it giving Menendez's contact, Hannah, monopoly rights related to supplying halal meat to the U.S. Yeah, Hannah, I don't know. Hannah met Menendez in his office along with others, including an Egyptian intelligence official, in May of 2019, asking for help fending off the U.S. agency's opposition. The group went to Washington, D.C., steakhouse for dinner that evening, the indictment said. 2 days later, Menendez allegedly called an Agriculture Department official asking them to stop opposing Hannah's venture. When Official 1 attempted to explain why the monopoly was detrimental to U.S. interests, Menendez reiterated his demand, in sum and substance, that the USDA stop interfering with ISEG Halal's monopoly. Official 1 did not accede to Menendez's demand, but ISEG Halal nevertheless kept its monopoly.
So it sounds like he did capitulate to his demands.
Yeah, pretty much. According to the indictment, searches of Menendez's home and safe deposit box federal agents conducted in 2022 turned up nearly $500,000 in cash, including envelopes inside jackets emblazoned with Menendez's name. So he just had cash envelopes stuffed in jacket pockets in his closet.
I do that all the time.
I mean, yeah, why would if you're gonna hide your money, why wouldn't you hide it in your jacket pockets? I like how well, we know it was his because it was in his name was monogrammed inside the jacket. It's like a bad movie.
Yeah, it's like,
or like not even a movie, like a crime like a crime series, like true crime, but like Law and Order type show or something like that, where it's like, well, we know it was the defendant's because his name was on the jacket.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's not mine. Well, we found this envelope with Mendez's name on it and this jacket that says this is Mendez's jacket.
It gets better. Prosecutors say some of the envelopes had the fingerprints or DNA of one of the business contacts from whom the senator is accused of taking bribes.
Wow.
So not only is there just random envelopes in pockets, but it's got the blatant fingerprints of his Egyptian friends that were trying to bribe him into keeping a monopoly for their halal meat company. The federal investigators who searched Menendez's home found a luxury vehicle paid for by Jose Uribe parked in the garage, as well as home furnishings from another business contact and gold bars.
It's like he doesn't even try.
So here was his previous trial conviction, or not conviction.
Does it have in there what his excuse was?
He goes into that.
Okay,
I've got another article where he's like,
"Gotcha,
guys.
Okay.
This is what really happened, but we'll get there.
Okay.
So his previous trial says Menendez was charged by federal prosecutors from the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey in 2015 with conspiracy, bribery, and honest service fraud relating to allegedly abusing power of his office. Prosecutors said the senator accepted more than $600,000 that time in political contributions, a luxurious hotel suite at the Park Hyatt in Paris, and free rides on a private jet from a wealthy ophthalmologist Dr. Solomon Melgen in exchange for political favors.
Ophthalmologist?
Yeah, what political favors is an ophthalmologist getting? And
So-
how does an ophthalmologist have a private jet?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of ophthalmology is he performing?
Just to let you know, 2020 is bad.
Right. The corruption trial of Menendez ended in a mistrial in November 2017. So, from what I read, this was such a bad trial that one of the jury members in this hung jury dared to ask the question, "What is a senator?" These are the people that decided his future.
Wow.
What
Okay.
is a senator? So, like, they're like, do you understand all the everything that's going on with this trial against Senator Menendez? And then he's like, any questions? What's a senator? I just imagine the judge was like, oh, God.
You know what? I'm done. He's whatever.
Hung jury. Says let's see. The corruption trial ended in mistrial in November 2017 after the jury reported it was deadlocked. Both men denied all of the charges. Following the mistrial, a federal judge acquitted them of several of the charges in 2018. Justice Department dropped the remaining charges against Menendez. Melgen, who was in on this too, that was the ophthalmologist, was convicted of dozens of counts of healthcare fraud, though, and sentenced to 17 years in a separate case.
Wow.
But his sentence was commuted by then-President Donald Trump. Like, who is this guy?
Yeah, right.
Like, why is he so important that he's flying around a senator?
Is he the next Epstein?
And he's, like, commuted by President Trump.
Right, yeah.
What is an ophthalmologist?
It's an eye doctor.
No, that's an optometrist. It is an eye doctor. Qualified to deliver total eye care. So an
contacts and
optometrist is
glasses.
just kind of...
They just check your vision.
Yeah, exactly. After his mistrial was announced in 2017, a defiant Menendez issued a warning at a news conference to those who are digging my political grave. He likes to say that because he said that this time too.
It sounded good the first time.
So that they could jump into my seat. I know who you are and I won't forget you. This is like the Cuban version of Donald Trump. So what do you think of this guy so far?
Yeah, he's slimy as fuck.
He is, and I really want to know who this ophthalmologist is that's being, like, flying people around.
Yeah.
For
Milligan is his name?
Meldon, I think.
Melgen.
So, and being commuted by Donald Trump. He's
Right.
like, I just want to make sure people never see me in glasses. So do your best. Do your best on my tiny orange eyes, and I will commute your sentence. I don't know.
Yeah,
I have more questions about that than about the slimy freaking senator from New
everything
Jersey.
in that article, I mean, there's giant, like, gaping holes in that, and it's like, but their focus is on Mendez, and so it's like, okay, Egypt. Ophthalmologist with a private plane that gets commuted by Trump.
Right. It's
jury people
so
who don't know
dumb.
what a senator is.
Like, well, let's get back to Menendez, though. Just, like, this scene.
Yeah.
Because they raided Donald Trump's place, and they found, like, strewn about documents and shit. They raided, or they checked out, I guess, Biden's place and found documents sitting in his garage and stuff.
Right.
They raid this guy's house. You think after all that, he starts hearing whispers that, hey, there's these rumors going around about you.
Yeah.
You'd think he'd get rid of the cash in his freaking jacket pockets.
Yeah.
Or the luxury vehicle that has pretty much a pink slip from the guy that they're accusing him of taking bribes from. Like, how stupid are you? Like, there's so many easier ways to hide, like, dirty money these days, and you're stuffing it in jacket pockets.
But stupidity or arrogance?
Well, that's, like, kind of what I was thinking early on, like, in our pre-show. It's just like, are they just to the point where, like, I'm untouchable?
Yeah, that's what I think. And like you said, they tried to get him on this once before, hung jury, which obviously was orchestrated, and so he's just thinking, you know what? I got a judge in the Justice Department in my pocket,
right?
And
I got that guy that doesn't even know who the fucking what a fucking senator is.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
we're
We'll bring him in again. He's due for jury duty.
So you want to get more into the Egypt stuff because seems to be a little more
very interesting to me.
I feel like CNN kind of intentionally glossed over some really key elements to this Egyptian thing here. So this one is from Al Jazeera, so it's straight from the Middle East. It says U.S. Senator Bob Menendez indicted on bribery charges. Prosecutors accuse Menendez and his wife of corruption, including using top Democrat power to influence policy to benefit Egypt. And it goes further than just like the monopoly thing with the one company.
With the halal meat.
Top U.S. Senator Bob Menendez and his wife have been charged, blah, 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 all that stuff we just said, including influencing foreign policy for the benefit of Egypt. Sounds kind of like what they were accusing Trump of in Ukraine and what Joe Biden literally did in Ukraine and all that shit. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan Friday accused Menendez and his wife Nadine of accepting hundreds of dollars. I feel like the translation here is a little off because it was hundreds of thousands, but this just says hundreds of dollars. Hundreds of thousands.
I doubt this would be on news if it was hundreds of dollars.
In their relationship with 3 New Jersey businessmen, who they mention on CNN. Those bribes include cash, gold payments towards a home mortgage, compensation, blah, 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 all the stuff we just read. Let's see. Let's get to the Egypt stuff. Here's his statement and blah, blah, blah. Let's see. I know it's here somewhere. They hid the stuff in the bottom too, but they actually talk about it. They're seeking to have Menendez forfeit assets, including his New Jersey home, a 2019 Mercedes-Benz, and about $566,000 in cash, gold bars, and funds from a bank account. The businessmen, Wal Hanna, Jose Uribe, and Fred Dibes, were also charged in the scheme. Prosecutors said Hanna, who is originally from Egypt, arranged dinners and meetings between Menendez and Egyptian officials in 2018, during which officials pressed the senator about halal meat, right? Mm-hmm. Pressed the U.S. senator about the status of U.S. military aid.
Oh.
So similar to what was going on in Ukraine.
Yeah.
In exchange, Hanna put Nadine Menendez on his company's payroll. So his wife.
Yes.
So she had nothing to do with this, obviously.
Right, obviously.
The Egyptian, or like native Egyptian, now New Yorker or whatever, all of a sudden puts his wife on the payroll and starts paying it, kind of like Hunter Biden.
Right.
It's like a small time Hunter Biden scheme going on. And then are trying to get some kind of military aid for Egypt. So that Egypt at the time was one of the largest recipients of U.S. military aid, but the Department of State had withheld $195 million in 2017 and canceled an additional $65.7 million until the country could demonstrate improvements in human rights and democracy. At a meeting Menendez in 2018, Menendez told Hanna non-public information about the status of the aid, prosecutors said.
Non-public as in private.
Yeah, it's in like classified or like at least not supposed to be out in the public.
Yeah.
Hanna then texted an Egyptian official, "The ban on small arms and ammunition in Egypt has been lifted," according to the indictments made public on Friday. Reporting from D.C. on Friday afternoon, Al Jazeera correspondent Heidi Zu Castro said the accusations are startling and wide-reaching. It says, the crux of the indictment, she said, was that Menendez shared sensitive and non-public information with Egyptians, including staffing at the U.S. Embassy in Cairo and the status of U.S. military aid in Egypt.
Holy fuck.
In a statement on Friday, the president of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington called on Menendez to resign. The stain of corruption continuously taints Menendez, said the group's president. Menendez deserves a fair trial and a presumption of innocence on the latest charges, but it is not appropriate for him to remain in office. Out of respect for the institution of the Senate, he must step down. So now what do you feel about this whole Menendez thing?
That's fucking like treason. Espionage, right? I mean, selling U.S. secrets for favors, a house, and a nice car.
Right. And a job for your wife.
Right, yeah, a
and-
nice job for your wife. I mean,
and gold bars and all this other shit.
Yeah.
So I don't know. This is a little bit more
right.
than what CNN was
Yeah,
talking
right.
about the halal meat company.
Yeah, monopoly for halal meat. Yeah, a little bit more.
So I mean, that is right on par. I feel like as the Trump, Biden, Ukraine love triangle menage a trois they had going on over there with Zelensky.
Yes.
And absolutely, if convicted, not only should he be kicked out of office, but he should be in some sort of detainment.
Prison, yes. Yeah, federal prison.
I mean, it doesn't come out and say that he influenced the policy towards the military aid and stuff, but it does make it seem like he at least gave off the perception to them that, I got this under control. I got this in the books and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'll take care of you. You take care of me. Because why else would that guy text back and be like, hey, guess what? The guns are going to keep flowing.
Yeah, the ban's lifted.
Yeah.
So he's either, again, implicitly involved in selling secrets and favors, or he's just dumb as fuck.
Or both.
Or both. But my guess is he knew exactly what he was doing. And
well, those are the same people whose fingerprints were on the cash and it's stuffed in his freaking his pockets and stuff. So obviously he wasn't just running his mouth. He was getting something out of this.
Yes.
Or he just happened to stick that cash in an envelope that they gave him.
What's this for? Oh, don't worry about it.
Oh, it's just like, I just took cash out. Oh, I got this old envelope sitting here. There's nothing left. Oh, like, I could reuse this envelope. I mean, old people.
But we didn't get time to set up the direct deposit for your wife, so we're just going to give you this for her services.
Yes, exactly. So this is a mess.
Yeah, and like you said, CNN glossed over quite a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think they did that on purpose, maybe?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, do you think they would have glossed it over if it would have been Donald Trump?
Oh, fuck no.
Do you think they would have just said, the only thing is this whole meat thing, monopoly.
No,
It's just,
like,
I mean, it's Egypt.
He's in bed with Egypt.
Yeah, he's in
and Putin
and Putin
and
China.
Yeah, and China.
Let's see.
And the Klan.
Interestingly, like I said before, Menendez has been on the other side of this, like pointing the fingers at corruption, sort of like Adam Schiff was. I want to get into this one talks about his previous case, or his, like, when he was on the finger pointing side, and it also kind of explains the whole Goldilocks, like the right amount of corruption.
Right.
So this one's from The Hill. It's titled "Robert Menendez Broke the Goldilocks Rule of Corruption." Let me get this one pulled back up. Says the massive indictment of Senator Robert Menendez and his wife has shaken Washington. As Senate Foreign Relations Chairman, Menendez is one. So he's the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations. So he's like high up there in like making deals with foreign entities such as Egypt.
Yes.
And so he's not some lowly senator that's just trying to make a couple extra bucks while living off the measly $160,000 that the Senate pays you. No, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
It says, as Senate Foreign Relations Chairman, Menendez is one of the most powerful Democratic members of Congress and someone who has long been a kingmaker in the party. He also has long been accused of open and insatiable corruption. What made Menendez a standout in D.C. was not his corrupt inclinations, but his utter audacity in following them. I was able to witness this signature conduct personally on the floor of the Senate. In 2010, I defended, so the author of this is talking, he apparently defended a judge, Thomas Porteous, a federal judge, who was being impeached for corruption charges. Says, against charges that he had taken gifts and misused his office for personal gain. The curious thing about the Senate trials is that you have a jury composed of people you could strike for cause in a real court. Menendez was among those sitting in the judgment of Porteous, but he wasn't just another face in the Senate crowd. He stood out. It was like arguing a piracy case with Captain Jack Sparrow sitting in the jury. Menendez himself would later go on trial in 2017 in a major bribery and fraud case involving luxury gifts allegedly exchanged for official favors. Most of us expected the worst when during jury deliberation, one juror asked the court, "What is a senator?" Menendez dodged the bullet, the jury hung, and the Justice Department dropped all the charges. Now Menendez has been slapped with a massive new bribery indictment. The facts are all too familiar with a long list of lavish gifts allegedly made in exchange for favors. The indictment details gold bars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, furnishings, and other gifts. His wife was allegedly actively involved in the corruption conspiracy and is also facing criminal charges. So then this talks briefly about the Porteous trial that he was involved in. During the Porteous trial, I noted that at the time of the underlying acts, the senators themselves were accepting free lunches. So while they're charging this guy with accepting favors and stuff, they're accepting free lunches, which at the time there was no laws or rules against. So that was fine, but what the judge was doing wasn't fine.
Yeah.
Says it was not until later that the rules changed on such gifts. Menendez now stands accused of accepting a host of gifts at that time, the same time that he was charging Porteous, including an $8,000 free flight in October 2010, in addition to luxury trips to Paris and the Caribbean villa. How do you sit on this panel accusing this guy of accepting gifts while at that same exact time you're receiving $8,000 in private flights, you're getting trips to Paris, the Caribbean and stuff, but you're like, you can't take gifts for blah, blah, blah. Only we can do that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly it.
Yet Menendez still demanded conviction for Porteous, even though the judge was never charged with bribery, and free lunches and other gifts would not be enough to even register with Menendez. So he wanted to throw the book at him, even though there wasn't bribery going on. It was just kind of receiving free stuff.
Yeah.
The question is whether this level of corruption is now enough for Democrats. California Governor Gavin Newsom, this is what I talked about a little bit ago, recently suggested a type of Goldilocks rule for corruption. He warned that people in Washington had better be careful if they want to crack down on the Biden family's influence peddling. So this is Gavin Newsom's quote. If that's the new criteria, if the new criteria is cracking down on corruption.
Yeah, you guys are just way out of touch.
If that's our new criteria, if that's what we're going with. There are a lot of folks in a lot of industries, and not just in politics, where people have family members in relationships, and they're trying to parlay and get a little influence and benefit in that respect. That's hardly unique. It's like, guys, corruption's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, are we really going there now? It would appear that the question is not corruption, but when a little corruption is just right. If these allegations against Menendez are proven when he violated Washington's Goldilocks rule, or then he violated Washington's Goldilocks rule, it would mean Menendez pursued gifts with a reckless abandon, endangering others whose corruption was more circumspect. So basically if the Goldilocks rule actually is in place, where it's just that's just the right amount.
Right.
Menendez far leapt over that line.
Overachiever.
Consider the timeline. It would mean that during the Porteous trial, Menendez was allegedly accepting gifts while condemning and removing from office a judge accused of receiving gifts. Later, after the jury hung in his first corruption trial, Menendez, according to the Justice Department, almost immediately started taking gifts from new sources. In a town known for certain finesse and influence peddling, Menendez broke with industry custom by allegedly accepting direct items like gold and a car instead of putting it in a slush fund or
little laundering.
Smart dirty money.
Don't make it look obvious, right?
There was
donate it to my kid's baseball team. Thanks.
There was no labyrinth of shell companies and accounts, just crude old-school corruption with cash stuffed in clothing and gold bars squirreled away for a rainy day. Where corrupt figures often refer to getting their beaks wet, Menendez allegedly took a headlong plunge into the pool of corruption. This city has not seen such low-grade alleged bribery since former.
Christie.
Well, there's that. Since former U.S. Representative William Jefferson of Louisiana was found with $90,000 wrapped like a po' boy in his freezer.
Yeah, I remember that.
Really? When was that?
Oh gosh, that was probably right after Katrina.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not any worse.
No, it's not. Yeah.
So, this guy, he's documented as pointing the finger at this judge, Porteous or whatever, and saying we got to throw the book at this guy. Yeah. He's the most corrupt. We need to de-seat him. It's unacceptable. Nothing like this should ever happen. Yeah. While he's
making bank.
Yeah, rolling around in private jets and doing the exact same, receiving free
even
dinners.
more so.
Yeah.
Even worse.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And then he gets charged in 2017. He gets off, and then he's just like, "Hey, I got off. We can keep doing this."
Yeah, right.
Business as usual.
Yeah.
Maybe not take it from the same companies, but
we'll shoot for Egypt this time.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think of this scumbag?
Yeah, everything that you think of when you think of a United States senator.
So it's like we know they're all involved in some sort of
shadiness,
taking. I mean, if you,
but selling. I mean,
Grumpy Gnome says 70% of our politicians are doing this. I would
agree
say
with
that's
that.
lowballing.
Yeah, right. That's being generous. But I mean, okay. Is there a difference in corruption if you're making a little extra money because you're insider trading on business deals, or if you're selling
government secrets to Egypt?
Yeah, exactly. Right? I mean,
exactly. Well, and that's kind of what I was getting at the beginning. It's like, when you are in a pool of people selling off personal secret to foreign entities, is it really that bad to take a free dinner from a guy that's trying to schmooze you?
Yeah.
I mean, yes, that is guilty of being Gavin Newsom and playing by the Goldilocks standards, but it's like, to an extent, that's just going to happen. Right. Again, in whether the ethics class tells you not to take out a potential client for a round of golf, it happens, and it's not something you're going to go to jail over. Should you do more ethical business? Maybe, but business is business, I guess. Things kind of do get in gray areas sometimes, but then there's the blatant, pressuring a country to fire their top prosecutor because your son happens to be in some shady dealings in that country. Now that's a little different than accepting a free Subway sandwich.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I would agree with that.
I guess pick your battles. But it is a slippery slope too. You start with the Subway sandwiches, then it turns into rounds of golf, then it turns into flights on the private jet to Paris, then it turns into luxury cars, and then that turns into gold bars and cash stuffed in your freaking jacket pockets and po' boy sandwiches.
And that's exactly it. It's like, hey, want to talk to you about something. Hey, I'll get your lunch, right? But then it's like, hey, I really want you to meet this guy. I think he can help you out with some dealings over in the Middle East. He's really influential. Why don't you fly with us down to the weekend, and down to the Caribbean, right?
Right.
So then you see how that quickly shifts.
Well, those, the lobbyists, the corporate guys, or the foreign entities or whatever, they know when they have the foot in the door. It's once you accept that free sandwich, it's okay, let's push a little more next time. Hey, that was we had a good time. I've got a membership at such and such country club. Why don't you come play around? And then you start shooting the shit there, having a couple drinks. The drinks obviously are complimentary, but somebody paid for them. And then while you're over a few drinks, it's like, hey, speaking of Egypt,
right. Or you remember Bob, right?
Yeah,
he's got a problem. You guys seem to get along. Maybe you can help him out, right? And then it's like, oh well, that's too bad because you did fly down to the Caribbean with him. That could look bad optics wise,
right?
So you might want to rethink that.
Yeah. Like, well, what if we let this get out that you accepted this? If you don't, it doesn't even have to be you scratch my back, I scratch yours. It could be like I scratch your back, now scratch mine.
Right.
Or I'm gonna tell people that you were scratching the whole time. I was scratching your back, and you enjoyed every second of it.
Yeah. No, and that's exactly it. And I think that's the position a lot of these senators get into.
Right.
Right.
So you had asked what his excuse was.
Yes. I mean, I know what it is, but I thought it was funny.
So, this is Menendez refusing to resign, as people are calling for. People are saying, like we read, people are saying, hey, you probably ought to step down. He's like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not ever going to do that. So here was his lines of what. So this wasn't a pay for play, a scratch your back. It wasn't like selling secrets, nothing like that. And he uses the race card a lot. Because at one point, I don't remember which article it was in, but he was like, they're only doing this because they can't stand having a Hispanic American at such a prominent place, or a first-generation Cuban at such a prominent position in the Senate. That's why they're coming after him. It's like, really? That's where you're going? That's your reason? Like, I don't think the race card works here, but he uses it in his excuse, too. He says, the allegations leveled against me are just that, allegations. He said at a press conference at a local community college. And he claimed that the $480,000 in cash seized at his home, found stuffed in envelopes and hidden in clothing and closets, was for emergencies, which I'm sure it was for emergencies.
Sure. I got an emergency fund, too. It's like $2 under my...
Right.
Never mind.
For 30 years, I have withdrawn thousands of dollars in cash from my personal savings account, which I have kept for emergencies, and because of the history of my family facing confiscation in Cuba, that's why he does it.
Yeah, right.
Because, like, you know how in Cuba they used to just take your money, and my family's from Cuba, so it's my history to just stuff cash in the mattresses.
And you can't, that's cultural discrimination, right? To say I can't do that.
He says, now this may seem old-fashioned, but these were monies drawn from my personal savings account based on the income that I have lawfully derived over those 30 years. I recognize that this will be the biggest fight yet, he continued. So he pretty much says, this is going to be a tough one, but I'm going to come out on top. It's all right. He says, not only will I be exonerated, I will still be New Jersey's senior senator.
Damn.
It says, speaking first in English and then in Spanish, he reiterated much of his message he offered immediately after the indictment was announced. He said he was confident the case would be resolved favorably, and he urged patience to allow all the facts to be presented, like they did with Donald Trump, obviously.
Right, of course.
And he said the prosecutors had framed the facts to be salacious as possible. I mean, you don't really have to frame it too salaciously.
Just let the facts out.
Right.
Which CNN did not do.
Standing behind the senator against a wall were roughly 24 people he called everyday people and constituents who know me. Menendez left without taking any questions.
Wow.
Then it gets into that same Hill article that we read about.
Yeah. So for all our thousands of listeners in New Jersey, get Menendez out. This guy is slime.
So, I mean, just his emergency stuffing.
Of course, because he, that's what you do in Cuba.
Yeah, because of his history as a
that makes sense.
Person of Cuba, a Cuban. Why wouldn't he stuff his jacket, monogram jacket pockets
with his name on it?
With his name and save gold bars and
the personal vehicle, that's, well, I guess he didn't stuff that enough. Now,
without the cash that they only seized the cash in his home because they had a reason to go search his home in the first place, and that shit was found.
Yeah.
None of that has anything to do with the Egypt stuff. Well, I mean, obviously that stuff.
Yeah.
So explain the fucking car that had pretty much had a pink slip with the Egyptian guy's name. Yeah.
Did you also put that there for
stick that aside for safekeeping because of Cuba too?
Yeah.
Like again, the only reason they were in his house was because of these allegations that came up, and then it's just like, well, let's go see what he's got going on here. And then they found the cash, and it's just like, guys, that's my money. I stuffed it there. This is all just a big misunderstanding. It's like, well, what about all the claims about the Egypt pay-for-play type stuff?
So-and-so's fingerprints are all over these envelopes.
Yeah. Well, I just save envelopes.
Yeah. I don't know who touches them.
Yeah, I'm just I like to, like, why spend money on new envelopes when I have these empty envelopes laying around? I could just stuff. He's like, your old boss, my boss now. Like, that saves, like, gift bags. And gift, even the tissue paper out of it, just in case for later. He's like, I just save envelopes. I just save them to use. And then I just, like, this would be a good cash stuffing thing. And it's like, now where should I keep this? I bet you... I could just hide it in my jacket pocket.
Nobody will look. Nobody looks there.
I don't know. It's stupid. It's fucking stupid.
Yeah. You ever think you know that great feeling, where you put on a jacket you haven't worn since last winter, and
you stick your hands in and you find
oh my gosh,
$5 or something. He sticks hands in and finds like $400,000 and a gold bar in the other pocket. He's like,
I thought this was a little heavy.
All right, we got to get into break. I don't know What do you think about this guy? Is this just a big misunderstanding, you think?
No, this guy is...
Is this just them bringing up the most salacious things?
This guy's shit.
This guy's scum.
They need to catapult him back over to Egypt.
When we come back, we're going to shift focuses to Adam Schiff and to talk a little bit about that, and then maybe get back into the question, like, how much corruption is too much corruption? Like,
Schiff is an interesting one, too. I'm looking forward to talking about what he did.
He's an interesting character. So we're going to take 2 or 3 minutes, and when we come back, we're going to keep talking about corrupt politicians, which we could literally talk about for the rest of forever. Yes. We'll be right back in just a couple minutes.
Take a moment and remember the feeling. When they called you not essential. When they dictated what you could do, where you could go, how you could breathe. It's disgusting, isn't it? And they're trying to do it again. We've seen what happens when the people lose control. When politicians and unelected bureaucrats make the big decisions on our behalf, whether we like them or not. When the choices are taken away from us one by one. We've seen what happens when they strip away medical freedom. When they trample on informed consent. When they dismiss our cries of justice. They laughed at us. They called us names.
Rest in peace, Wheezy.
Them, their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
And they shamed us for not going along with their every demand. Enough already. It's time to hold these tyrants accountable. In the midst of them trying to do it again, this wasn't a public health measure. This was an act of war against a peaceful people. But a reckoning is coming, and we're leading the charge. This campaign is for all of us. I'm asking you to join this movement that's for every single person who felt the crushing weight of mandates, the sting of being called unessential, the pain of having your liberties stripped away. I'm Joshua Smith, and I'm running because you are essential, and because our freedoms are non-negotiable. Not last time, not this time, not ever again.
I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good.
We faced the challenges. We felt the pain, but we're not defeated. Together, we have the power to create a brighter future, one where liberty thrives and tyranny dies. I endorse prosecuting the COVID tyrants and using Guantanamo Bay to lock them away for their crimes against humanity. In the face of all of this happening again, where they think we're stupid enough to fall for it, in 2024, a vote for me is a vote for vengeance. Go to joshuasmith2024.com to find out how you can help.
We're back. Sure.
Your drinks.
Did.
Good.
So we're talking about money in pockets stuffed in closets and gold bars and luxury cars and jobs for wives and
yes,
some low-level corruption.
Yeah,
low-level,
nothing
like,
major.
yeah.
Selling some defense secrets to Egypt.
Right, like maybe influencing some foreign policy when you're just at the lowly position of like the highest foreign policy senator.
Yes, yeah, nothing major.
I mean, there's the gray area, and then at some point you gotta be like, that's the line. And then there's Bob Menendez who flying leapt over the line.
Yeah.
But it's all just salacious.
Right.
Making them seem more salacious than it was because that was just his emergency fund because Cuba.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know how Cuba was for him. So can you expect anything different than him hiding money in his
not at all.
pockets?
Not at all. And it's I don't want to give him the credit of saying he's got some balls on him.
Right.
But because it's like, again, it's the ego of it. It's knowing that, okay, I've already beaten this once.
Right.
So it's irritating.
So let's shift to Adam Schiff.
See what you did there.
You see what I did there? Like, again, this guy's also played a pretty significant role in the fight against, quote-unquote, fight against corruption.
Yeah. California senator.
Taking
on the big dogs.
So he's been kind of a thing for a couple different high-profile impeachment cases. One being Donald Trump's first impeachment, like we mentioned. Do you know what the other one happened to be? He was an impeachment manager for the Judge Porteous trial.
What?
So both of them are connected to that trial. Yeah, right?
Dang.
They both said, you know what, you're a scumbag, Mr. Judge, you need to step down. Yeah. And both of them are now getting the fingers pointed back at them.
You know what would be really funny? It wouldn't happen, but if the judge that presided over both of them was Judge Porteous.
That would be hilarious, except he's not a judge anymore.
Well. Yeah, right.
How the turns have tabled. So it's interesting to me because none of the articles make that connection. I just happened to look up Adam Schiff on Wikipedia and happened to scroll down to his Senate time his time as an impeachment manager and looking up some of the cases and stuff. And one just happened to be the same one that Bob Menendez was involved in. I was like, are you serious?
Maybe this is Judge Porteous going out for revenge for everybody that was on his impeachment.
Oh, what was that movie where the guy went and hunted down all the different people that?
Oh, there's a lot of movies like that.
Oh, there's one that I'm thinking of in particular, but I don't know. I can't think of what it involved. He went and shot a minister or something, or maybe he might have let the minister live or something. I don't know, but he was.
Yeah,
I can't remember. But this is Judge Porteous's revenge moment, taking down the whole.
Yeah. I want to see who else
anti-Porteous. Yeah. Who's next on the list? They're all shaking in their boots.
Yeah.
So he was an impeachment manager for the Thomas Porteous trial. He was the lead investigator first for the Trump impeachment inquiry initially, and then he did such a good job in the inquiry that Nancy Pelosi's like, you know what, I want you in charge of this whole impeachment trial. Wow. And so he was put in charge of that, and it's all history from there.
Yeah.
So what did this guy do? What's he being accused of? This is from Zero Hedge. It says, busted. Adam Schiff funneled millions to defense contractors after taking their donations. So, again, this goes back to, campaign donation laws and stuff like that. At what point is it illegal to, award contracts to these people that donated to your campaign to begin with? That's the whole issue I have with campaign donations. It's obviously everybody that is donating to your campaign wants something out of it. You can't be a politician accepting campaign donations and not unless it's like crowdfunded or something like that, where you're like having a GoFundMe account. If you're taking donations from corporations or something, they want something.
It's like they're a stockholder in your political career, right? But like, oh, well, I own 50,000 shares, right?
Exactly. It says, while Representative Adam Schiff campaigns for a Senate seat on a platform of earmarks for local causes, the 12-term congressman has been busted for steering millions in taxpayer dollars to for-profit defense contractors, many of whom have been political donors to his
I
campaign.
find it interesting that a Democrat is shifting millions of dollars into defense contractors. I mean, aren't they typically like anti-defense contractor?
Ukraine.
Yeah.
They were until Ukraine.
There
now
you go. Yes,
they're
good point.
The pro-war
Yes.
party. According to investigation by Politico, Schiff has offered an incomplete and potentially misleading account of his record on earmarks. So he's campaigning on earmarks, and he's like not being forthcoming about his own earmarks. Says a Politico review of congressional earmarks. Let me pause. God, I gotta keep these videos from popping up because they slow everything down. A Politico review of congressional earmarks and political contributions found that, in addition to the money for homelessness and drug treatment, Schiff also steered millions to... I like how he's like, but I gave money to the homeless
Would
and
that
drug
be
treatment.
the homeless shelters that are $44,000 tents?
Probably. Schiff also steered millions to for-profit companies and raised tens of thousands for his House re-election campaigns from corporate executives and people connected to them. The review was mostly limited to publicly available data from the brief 3-year window when corporate earmarks were disclosed. In 2 particularly egregious cases, Schiff channeled millions in funding to Smith's Detection and Phasebridge, Inc., 2 defense companies within his district, with $6 million steered to Smith's Detection and $3 million to Phasebridge. Both moves have been barred under reforms adopted in 2010. The financial maneuvering coincided with Schiff receiving $8,500 in contributions from PMA Group PAC and 2 family members of Paul Magliochetti, founder and owner of the lobbying firm retained by both defense companies. So, these people, these PACs or these lobbying firms, they lobby for these defense contractors, and he got $8,500, which isn't a ton, but he got money from them, and in turn, those defense contractors received millions of dollars in defense contracts.
Yeah, which you got to read these expenditures, because they're hilarious.
So, in 2011, Paul Magliochetti was sentenced to 27 months in prison for making illegal campaign contributions. Why is this guy even allowed to make any contributions at this point anymore?
Yeah, he should be not allowed to make contact.
How is he even working for a lobbying firm at this point? Says the earmark Schiff delivered for donors. $9 million earmarked to Smith's Detection for Chemical Weapons, Sensors, and Phasebridge, Inc. that was developing a radar frequency distribution system for the Navy. Amount donated to Schiff's campaign was $8,500. $1 million from Eureka Aerospace for military technology to stop vehicles that ignore checkpoints.
Isn't that just a bullet?
I think so.
I mean, what kind of technology do you need? A fence?
Or like the things that pop up out of the ground?
Yeah, right. $1 million for that.
$1 million for that. He received $34,000 towards his campaign from that company. $1 million to Tanner Research for detecting IEDs. Received $15,800 from that company. $800,000 earmarked for Orbit's Lightwave Incorporated for an ultra-stable coherent laser project.
That's not a red flag nowadays.
He received $3,700 in campaign donations from them. $492,000 to Super Protonic for solid acid fuel cell research. He received $1,500 from them.
But the thing is that's what he's claimed, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see anything under the table, right?
Right.
I mean,
that's just it. They're saying, and his list is incomplete.
Right.
This is just what we know.
Yeah.
This is based on the public information. What's not public is the more concerning part.
Right.
Because if he's willing to disclose that,
right,
what's he not willing to disclose? It says, Schiff claims to not have full accounting of his earmarks. He's like, wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
I'm not the one who did it. Just because that's my responsibility. Yeah. I'm not the one who did that.
Right, yeah. You got to talk to my campaign manager.
The congressman's campaign has been quick to minimize these connections, emphasizing the small proportion of contributions in his overall fundraising, and underscoring his commitment to ensuring California's tax dollars work for their benefit. In a boilerplate response, spokesperson Marisol Samayoya said Californians know and trust Adams' record of getting things done, and as a U.S. Senator, he will do what it takes to ensure Californian tax dollars are put to work for them and their priorities. These contributions amount to less than 0.1% of what Adam has raised over 20 years in Congress. So she's like, I think that's a she. Marisol sounds like a she.
Marisol sounds like a she.
Says, you got to realize, they donated to his campaign, but he's made a lot more than what they donated. So
right.
That's just drops in a bucket.
It's not even worth mentioning.
And yes, we haven't disclosed everything that he has earmarked and has thrown money at and shit.
Because we don't really know it all.
Right. It says, and we're driven by what was best for our troops and his constituents. So they got to throw out there. It's like, you believe in the troops, right?
Right, yeah.
This is what's best for our troops.
Yeah.
The lasers and the checkpoint bars and shit.
Yeah.
So that's what, it wasn't the hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions. It was what's best for our troops.
Right. Yeah.
However, Schiff's lack of transparency in providing a complete list of his earmarks further fuels the cloud of skepticism surrounding his actions. We were always concerned about the pay-to-play aspects, and that's something every lawmaker must live with, said Steve Ellis, president of Taxpayers for Common Sense, a nonpartisan budget watchdog, who has been analyzing earmarks for decades. If you're getting a campaign contribution and getting your earmark for that same company or for a client that lobbyists, it has that perception. So it's like, even if this isn't what was happening, the optics are not real great here.
Right.
The earmark process was changed following rising spending on a series of congressional pay-to-play scandals in the mid-2000s, including that of former Representative Randy Duke Cunningham of California, who admitted to taking millions in bribes from defense contractors, as well as disgraced lobbyist Jack Abramoff, who dubbed the appropriations panel a favor factory. So he claimed, it's like, this is just a favor factory, and wondered why he got caught. And
right. It's like, everybody else is doing it. Why are you guys coming after me?
More of Schiff's shiftiness via Politico. So this is some other stuff that he's got going on. Schiff directed $1 million to Pasadena-based Eureka Aerospace, which was developing military technology to stop vehicles that ignored checkpoints. Eureka CEO James Tatoian contributed $24,000 to Schiff between 2006 and 2016. Others in his household also gave almost $10,000 through 2020. His only other federal contributions in recent years went to former Republican Senator Martha McSally of Arizona, a retired Air Force colonel and former pilot. So this guy is
out.
this guy has never really donated to any campaign except Adam Schiff's, and now he's all of a sudden getting earmarks for his company. Schiff channeled $1 million to Tanner Research of Monrovia for detecting IEDs. CEO John Tanner donated $15,000 to him from 2003 to 2012. Schiff got $800,000 earmarked for Orbit's Lightwave for an ultra-stable coherent laser project. Yakov Chevy, Orbit's Lightwave's co-founder and president, donated $2,500 to him over his time in Congress.
His name's Yakov?
His name is Yakov.
Okay.
And executive Katrine Sarukhanian gave $1,200. All the rest of the stuff we talked about. So, I mean, yes, he's not getting a ton of kickback that we can see.
Right.
Not to the tune of what Bob Menendez was. Yeah. But I mean, it seems at least like he's getting shit on
Right.
for some. This just is like what level do we say no bad and well that's just like typical campaign donations and stuff.
Right.
Like there's you can say there's got to be a line, or I say either let them contribute as much money as fucking possible, who cares, or don't let them contribute any money.
Right.
Like you're putting a limit, like a cap on it. It's like, well, these people can only try to influence policy to the tune of a couple $100,000 versus $5 billion. It's like either let them throw all the money at it and just let the whole thing go to shit, or just cancel campaign contributions altogether, except maybe like, but even crowdfunding, you'd still get some sort of like, some like hacker guy that's setting up all these accounts, like donating like $10 at a time. Yeah, exactly. I mean, what was it?
Well, FTX.
Well, yeah, but have you seen Breaking Bad, where they set up because he had cancer and they set up like a fake GoFundMe thing to launder his money through and made it look like small donations and then it was just like going, and they set it up under his son's name, or his son set it up originally, and then they kind of hacked into it and like made it look like all these like like small time donations so they could funnel their money through it. And it's like, something like that would happen.
Oh, absolutely.
So just no campaign donations at all. Like just word of mouth. Just I don't know. Go self fund your shit, or get all the everybody throw all the money at it. There doesn't have to be a line. Yeah. The line is all or nothing in my book.
I agree. I agree with that 100%. And they say, to run a successful political campaign, you have to about $45,000.
For what though? Not for president.
Well, no, for like a state representative.
Yeah.
So, no, I imagine president, you're looking at, millions of dollars.
Yeah. So that would get rid of the gray area altogether.
Right.
It's either all or nothing.
Yeah.
No gray areas, black or white. It's just like, just throw all the corruption and money at it. Who fucking cares that we're being bought out? Because we're getting bought out. The Senate's getting bought out. The president's bought out. They're all bought out anyway. I think it was somebody had commented. I think it was Derek said, politicians should be like NASCAR drivers. They should have to wear patches of everyone that contributed to their campaign and take bribes from them.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
I mean, look at like for example, NASCAR. Is there a cap on how much
that's a good question.
People can sponsors can pay?
Yeah.
Because doesn't that give you an advantage if you're getting more sponsor money?
Oh, yeah.
You can put the better engine in, the better slick
wheels,
tires on it.
Better pit crew.
Yeah, you can have a better freaking Confederate flag hat or something.
Right. Yeah.
Versus the guy that has no sponsorship and he's driving around his freaking hoopty.
Right. Yeah.
Like I don't think there's a cap on what your sponsors can pay you. So why did I mean, yes, it gives an unfair advantage, but just be better at your job, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe just don't have a cap on those. Just be a better politician or a scummier politician. I mean, it's going to be corrupt, but at least we'll know that it's corrupt.
Yeah.
We won't have people saying, no, this isn't really what's happening. This is just actually this. No, we'll know. It'll be exactly what it looks like. It's like, this guy was bought off, and we know it because they're all fucking bought off.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Or no campaign contributions. Like, well, these guys are clean because they can't take any money.
Right, yeah.
I don't know. That's my political science lack of degree there.
But I would agree with that. Again, it's all or nothing. I don't agree with the whole lobbyist thing because they've abused the system so much. We've talked about this. It's a revolving door.
Right.
Politicians make money off making bills that favor different companies.
Mm-hmm.
They retire. They automatically start out in that company.
I mean, when you leave the gray area like this, I mean, yes, there's a process that has to be done to get the contract. You have to bid it out and blah, blah, blah. You can't just give it to the guy that contributed the most. You got to bid it out. But how hard is it to call up such and such laser company and be like, well, these guys bid this, this, and this. You just got to get $1 lower. This price is right. Just $1 lower.
Right.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's not with the gray area, there's no law saying you can't give a contract to somebody that contributed to your campaign. There's nothing that says that. Otherwise, why would they contribute to your campaign? So that's the gray area we leave with all this freaking political shit.
Well, and plus, they double dip, right? Because it's like, okay, yeah, they're going to donate to your campaign, but also all of a sudden, that stock's going to jump up really high in that company because they're about to get a nice fat government contract.
Right, exactly. And if they wear the patches, like Derek said, we know who bought them out. Yeah. We know whose stock's going to go up, and we can all get rich off of it. So
who to invest in.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess let's go back. I mean, do you got much more? There's not a ton on Peter Schiff, Adam Schiff.
Right. No, there's not. Yeah. Like
I wouldn't say it's as bad as Bob Menendez.
No.
And yes, they're probably only like shitting on him because he's the anti-Trump guy. But it goes back to the whole the people that point the fingers are usually the ones doing it themselves, like Menendez was, like Adam Schiff. Like they're all doing it. At least be like Gavin Newsom and don't point fingers because you know that everybody's doing it.
Right. So would you say that Andrew Schiff is falling within the Goldilocks rules of that Newsom has set?
If the Goldilocks rules in Washington exist, I would say Adam Schiff kind of is playing within that because with the gray areas that exist, I think he still kind of falls in that gray
I would
corruption
agree with
area.
that.
Now, Bob Menendez, no, he's just like totally jumped over the gray.
Yeah, he blew the shit out of the Goldilocks.
So back to the original question.
Yes.
Does power corrupt or does power attract the corrupt? And you kind of said it's kind of probably both, but
probably
more.
Like 90%
the corrupt are attracted to power, and the other couple percent is that people go in with good intentions and then slide down the slippery slope.
And unfortunately, look how many politicians are already, especially in the high positions, are wealthy. And have always been wealthy, right? They're business owners. They're high-priced corporate lawyers. They're the real estate people. I mean,
they were playing the corrupt game long before they got into.
Yeah, I mean, look at our own town's city council. How many of them are land developers, real estate agents, and business owners? Right? I mean, they all work within that realm.
Right.
Right.
Well, it's like every politician that you've ever heard of has done something that you can be like, well, that was fucking corrupt. Look at like Nancy Pelosi, like we said, with what we would call insider trading. Yeah, she doesn't call it insider trading because the law doesn't say she can't do that, and obviously she doesn't go home and talk to her husband after he's getting beat with hammers and shit by a dude in his underwear. She doesn't go tell him that this stock will probably jump soon because of my policies. Go by that. She would never do that.
Yeah. But she also has a son who's like one of the top board people on like the microchip company out of Taiwan.
And exactly.
You know, so
and you got like Donald Trump who campaigned at his own at Trump Tower and made millions of dollars through his I mean, that I would say is pretty fucking corrupt. It's just like, we're gonna use campaign funds for our big campaignly thing, and we're gonna host it at Trump Towers though. That's my gift to you. And he's getting like millions in campaign funds just back to his tower to rent that space out.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty fucked up. I think.
I agree.
What about like Obama, who like started out as like a poor like man of the people, like an organizer guy, and now he's like got like 6 homes in Martha's Vineyard and shit.
Right.
Obviously, he got that just specifically from being the president.
Oh, absolutely.
He made all those millions off of
or the Clintons who specialize in disaster capitalism.
Right, exactly. Derek says lobbying groups, bills that are thousands of pages long. It's all crap. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about the Bidens? We know
where
Bidens
they are. Yeah.
What about like you were talking, like small town politicians fall into that whole scheme. Like I know my small town of like 3,700 people that I grew up in, they had a treasury that skimmed, or like the county treasury skimmed, the freaking county clerk skimmed. They've been to jail and stuff. It's just like
there's a small town not too far from here that I was talking to somebody, and they were talking about how the mayor gives friends businesses all the town business and stuff.
Well, there's I can't remember what it was. One of the small towns east of here, like Springville or somewhere in that area. Remember, there was like a dude that was like holding 2 full-time positions there that they didn't know he was like making a full-time check, 40-hour-a-week check, but he wasn't spending 80 hours there. He was just going to work 40 hours a week, and he was expensing like for both jobs. I'm doing both jobs.
I might as well get paid for them.
Yeah, and like somehow the town didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Just,
and that's about as podunk as you can get at Springville.
Right. Or like, I mean, it's not even just a political power thing. It's like everybody that gets to that point at some point starts somewhere. It's like, I could skim a little. I could make a little extra buck here. I'm not making it that much money as a politician or that much money as whatever. I'm a business owner. It'd be easy for me to just like skim here.
Yeah.
What about, or like all the way up to what's the white dude's name that like blew his freaking pension fund of back in the 90s? What's the big one where he just like split the country or something with his Bernie Madoff. Bernie Madoff. Yeah. I mean, like everybody that gets in some role of power starts somewhere, whether it's through like, I'm going in with good intentions or I'm going in because
here's one
hungry.
that this is funny. So I was sitting in church and they had this young guy who is a leader in the youth, and he was talking about how he had gotten an intern position with Governor Reynolds. And how he wasn't supposed to get that position because only college students are supposed to get it. But because of his parents' connections, he got that position. And he was bragging about it in church there while he was talking to the congregation, but he was talking about how blessed he was and everything. And I'm just like, well, that's fucked up.
That's pretty corrupt, dude.
Yeah, that's like ground level corruption right there.
That's just, you start out at the slippery slope like that.
Yeah.
And you end up in like a position where it's just like, well, I'll just skim a little off to.
Yeah.
I mean, the town's not gonna know.
Right. Yeah.
The city's not gonna know that we're giving contracts to these people and not to these people. You know,
they offered us a better deal, so you know, right?
Derek says our fair board is all ran by one single family, and they're missing hundreds of thousands of dollars. And a county fair board. The county only has a few thousand people. Well, what about what was that company that ran the Cedar Rapids events?
Oh yeah. They did that big one with Maroon 5 was playing.
Yeah, and they lost. Yeah. They bombed on it. Well,
yes.
they were like getting investors for it, saying they had X amount of tickets sold when they didn't have that much sold, and they ended up owing like they just like disintegrated because the event happened. They didn't sell as many tickets as they said they were selling, and so they owed like $1 million or something like that.
Yeah, it was quite a bit,
and it was just like dumped on the city. The city just had to come up with that money, and so it's just stuff like that. That's like you get to that position, even if it's just like, I sit on the board of the county fair. It's like that power will get to your head, or in the very least, it's like there's just money sitting here. Like, what are we gonna like? How many cows can we have to the fair? Like, is anybody gonna notice when we don't have like 18 rides? We only have like 15 rides, but we said we were paying for 8. Is anybody really counting the fair rides?
Yeah, you're right.
It's just like, well, we could just line. I mean, especially when it's a family board like that.
Right?
It's
yeah,
like
exactly.
Nobody's held accountable.
With all we sacrifice for this county, I think they could owe us a little bit. Right.
Derek lives in a screwed up
what
area.
the hell, Derek?
Derek says our hospital was missing hundreds of thousands of dollars also. Gotta love small towns. So it's not like even just like mega politics. Yeah. It's almost easier at the small town level to just like, who's gonna notice this missing? Like, because you're not paying as many auditors and the accountability is not there. You're electing like Uncle Rick and Cousin Bob to the position, and wondering why they're not holding each other accountable. Right. Kind of like the Biden family.
Right. Yeah.
So it's not just like mega, like federal level politics. I mean, the corruption just is across the board when it comes to those quote unquote powerful positions. Depending on what you think's considered powerful, I guess. But again, it's like the people that want those positions are the ones that are going to end up thrown in jail because they skimmed from the county, or they skimmed from the federal government, or they accepted gold bars from the Prince of Egypt or something.
Yeah. Do you think it's kind of like a susceptibility like that someone has? And I just see with an article that probably addresses that. I was talking about like somebody who may be like more susceptible to, say, like a gambling addiction, like somebody who's more addicted to power than others.
This one does get into, probably. It usually ends up being like, well, I skimmed off the top to pay off my gambling debt, something stupid like that.
Yeah,
like,
right. Or,
like somebody that like already has some kind of like
vice that they have to kind of keep up on.
Right. So this is just a blog article. It talks about the psychology of political power. Does power corrupt, or is it magnetic to the most corruptible? And we're running out of time, so I'm not going to read this whole blog, but it's interesting because it has that debate, like, does absolute power corrupt, or are the corrupt just the ones who draw themselves to power? So it says, in January 22, I attended a conference on political power, morality, and corruption. A Socratic dialogue with fellow scholars led me back to one question that epistemologically, so you can tell these are like philosophical scholars because they're using big words like that. Epistemologically haunts political theory and philosophy to date. Does power corrupt, or is it magnetic to the most corruptible? The cornerstone that this question posts on the antithetical to the idea of power duality as malefic and benefic. God, I shouldn't have picked this.
Bad or good.
Instead, this problem statement is trying to explore and exact the fundamentals of political power. While the former part of the question is striving to deconstruct the soma of power itself, the latter construct of the question is focusing on the agency of an individual with political power. Now, if you read Frank Herbert's chapter house Dune, he writes, all governments suffer a recurring problem. Power tracks pathological personalities. So,
he quotes Dune?
Dune. Not the movie Dune, or the game Dune.
No, I'm thinking like the sci-fi.
It's Herbert's chapter house Dune.
It is Dune.
It is not that power corrupts, but is the magnetic to the corruptible. Such people have a tendency to become drunk on violence, a condition to which they are quickly addicted. So back to that addictive kind of personality that you were talking about. Rather than saying absolute power corrupts absolutely, Herbert reveals a common metaphysical denominator, corruptibility, that fundamentally connects all those with political power. However, his semantic interpretation gives birth to more questions than answers. Suppose we take Herbert's argument in consideration and assume that the most corruptible are indeed attracted to power. In that case, the global political infrastructure as we know it today is then built on the building block of corruption by its very virtue, which, yes, it is.
Yes.
For example, the 4th edition of Global Corruption Index covered 196 countries and territories. There's a Global Corruption Index?
That's awesome.
And provided a comprehensive overview of the state of corruption around the world based on 43 variables. The extensive data revealed only 52 countries have a low corruption index, with Finland and Norway leading the way. On the other hand, the rest 144 countries are suffering from profane corruption. Using Herbert's interpretation of power and corruption, should we conclude that political corruption, which is about privatization of average citizens and the use of the public sphere to promote private interests, is the foundational political infrastructure of these 144 countries? Yes, probably. And if this assertion is true, does it mean every government representative of those 144 countries are fundamentally corrupt? Yes, probably. Yes. Herbert's simplistic interpretation of that problem statement creates a more conundrum of either this or that rather than exploring the connection between the two variables, power and corruption. So this says, power doesn't corrupt, it amplifies and reveals a leader's predispositional traits, which is kind of what you were saying. Do they have like a predisposition towards gambling or towards like, are they sociopathic,
right? Or
are they
narcissistic?
Narcissistic, yes. Yeah. And but basically, it's like they go in with great intentions, but the power brings out this trait that was already there. It doesn't create a corrupt individual, it brings out,
it gives the opportunity for that trait to grow,
to come to the surface.
And I would argue, I mean, when you're in and around shitty people, right? I mean, you kind of act a little bit shittier yourself, right? And so I would argue that like politicians see all this stuff going on.
Yeah, and it just comes out.
Yeah.
Derek says, my little kid's safety day organization has more oversight than most of the country. He said, I also didn't want to be in control of that thing, but if no one stepped up to do it, it would have died many years ago, and it educates public, and kids love it. They love even more when the bounce houses show up, but I'm not bitter. Remember that conversation?
I do. I felt bad for Derek on that one.
For decades, social psychologists were convinced that power corrupts. One of the key demonstrations was, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it talks about the
prison experiment.
Yeah, they had these students do the prison experiment where left to their own vices, given the power and stuff, like they end up being like super sadistic, like making them take off all their clothes and sleep on a hard floor. And it's just like, wow, this power really got to them.
Yeah.
And then it talks about, so that's where that came from, where it's just like, well, this total power and control thing really fucked these kids up really quickly. But it says, the results were shocking. However, the Stanford prison experiment failed to explore one crucial variable: the behavioral and cognitive pattern of students who willingly participated and were recruited to be part of the study of prison life. So basically saying, now, did we take into context the people that would actually volunteer for this kind of study and be like, hey, you want to go control this prison thing? Like, did we take that into account? Or did we just look at the results but not really look at who we were pulling in to begin with?
Right.
It says, this subduing was absolute let's see. Revisiting the Stanford prison experiment, could participant self-selection have led to the cruelty? They wanted to study what kind of people participated and are drawn to the likes of the Stanford prison experiment. The research revealed that the volunteers for the prison study scored significantly higher on measures of the abuse-related dispositions of aggressiveness, authoritarianism, Machiavellianism, narcissism, and social dominance, and lower on empathy and altruism, two qualities inversely related to aggressive abuse. So the people that were like, yeah, I'm in, I'll do that.
I want to be a guard.
They already have predispositions towards narcissistic behavior or social dominance and stuff like that. So they didn't take that into account originally, but then they went back and revisited it, and they're like, oh, that's why these people turned into monsters, because they already were monsters and we brought that out of them.
And I would argue that, not argue because we're kind of agreeing on this, but I would say that power, it amplifies, whatever like psychosis or negative emotional trauma you have inside you.
Right.
And look who our politicians are. They're trust fund babies. They're high-powered lawyers. They're high-powered real estate agents. They're, people whose families have silver spoons. So they're not... They don't appreciate power because they've always had it. They don't appreciate money because they've always had it, typically. And so that's what we're seeing this. We don't have Joe Blow, who comes from a good farm family, who knows family values.
Right.
Because, that's not what these guys have. They have dad's never home because he's screwing around with his secretary, and mom has all these tennis lessons with Uncle Joe, and we, we're constantly have this flow of money coming in, and we beat the slaves. That's what we got for our politicians.
Right. This is way more philosophical than we usually get, and we're not even like digging that deep. But it is interesting to actually think about that. And the best politicians typically are the ones that are like, I don't freaking want to do this in the first place. Right. The ones that are like, I just lifelong dream of being a politician. They're probably there's something wrong with them.
Right.
There's nobody that's like, I want to rule over you people from the kindness of my heart.
Yeah, I've always wanted to be president because how cool would that be?
Right. I think that's why Donald Trump actually ran for president.
No,
It wasn't to save the country. It's like, that would just be really cool.
Yeah.
I've done everything, but I just haven't been president yet. I just feel like if I'm president, then I've succeeded as far as I can go. It's like the bigliest title. So, I don't know.
Yeah, because that's why they don't let go of it either, though.
Well, yeah.
Right? That's why we have senators who have been in office for 50 years because they don't want to let go of that power.
Well, yeah, what are they going to go do?
Right, exactly.
And when they do let go, they usually go work for the corporations that lobbied for them and that they kick back money to. So, I mean, it's just big revolving door of playing the power game.
Yeah.
I don't know. Term limits would help, I think.
Term limits or mandatory retirement age.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think term limits is like you got 4 years to do whatever you can.
Right.
Your job isn't to try to get reelected. Your job is to make nice on the promises that you promised. And a lot of those people go in making promises that will get them reelected the next time. Like every politician is thinking about the next time. Like everything they do is just like, well, is this going to hurt my reelection chances? That's why like a president doesn't do, like, it doesn't seem like they do a whole lot in their first 4 years. Doesn't get a lot done. And then after they get reelected, they're like, fuck it, it's not like I'm getting reelected. I'm just going to start slashing this. And like George Bush, like we saw the true George Bush his last year of how terrible,
as you typically do.
How terrible of a president, like economic president he was. And like how, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like the first four years was obviously Iraq and Afghanistan, and
Obama was the same.
Well, yeah, and then in the last couple of years, it's just like, oh, you're just gonna throw money at people,
right?
Like that you think that's gonna say just print some checks and throw it at people, and that's gonna save the economy? That's what you think's a good idea?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I feel because Bush lost a lot of his popularity in that last year too, and it's like the true colors start coming out when it's like, well, I'm not going to get reelected anyway, so I'm just going to say screw it and do what I probably would have done. I'm going to do things that obviously benefit my people, and I'm going to go out with a paycheck.
And my guess is, if Biden ends up not running again, or we see that it's apparent he's not going to win, we'll start seeing him do even worse shit he's already doing.
Which, that's scary. That's terrible. Well, let's go out on a less philosophical note. Let's go out with a list of America's most crooked politicians. Some example of we talked about Adam Schiff. We talked about Menendez, and we talked about all these other people. I found this list from CNBC. It says, meet America's most crooked politicians. And some of these stories are interesting. I had no idea. Like Ulysses S. Grant is on the top 10 list of most corrupt politicians. Let's see. It says, absolute power corrupts absolutely. We found out that's not the case tonight, so this article needs to catch up. It says, but for American politicians looking to make some money, even a little power will do quite nicely. The history of American politicians, or American politics, is lined with public officials lining their pockets. To create a truly elite list of America's most crooked politicians, we limit our search to financial scandals. If we added sex scandals, you'd be here all day. And because practically every public official has at some point battled allegations of corruption, our list, ranked by money stolen in 2016 dollars, includes only proven or admitted misconduct. Prepare to be outraged as you enter our Hall of Shame. Number 10, Ray Nagin from New Orleans.
Oh, yeah, I remember him.
New Orleans Shakedown was what the scandal was called, 2004 to 2010. Apparently scammed $500,000 at the time, now worth $600,000. So some of these don't seem as much, but then they put them in today's, like Grant's was like a couple $100,000, but today's standards would be like millions of dollars. So it says he became the public face of the battered city after Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans in 2005. But when the city recently marked the 10th anniversary of the storm, Ray Nagin was nowhere to be seen. That's because the former mayor is serving a 10-year federal prison sentence for corruption before, during, and after Katrina. What is scam lax in dollars compared to some of the other... This is typed terribly. Like, there's spaces are missing in, like, almost every other word. What his scam lacks in dollars compared to some of the other great American frauds, it makes up for in audacity. At a time when his city needed help the most, Nagin used the disaster as a revenue source. He installed an associate as the city's chief technology officer, gaining control over millions of dollars in a no-bid city contracts for things like computer systems and crime cameras. And Nagin used his position as mayor to steer redevelopment business to a granite company he owned with his sons.
That's fucked up.
Perhaps worst of all, he let his city down during his darkest hours. A disaster can be prime breeding ground for corrupt politicians. Some disasters like hurricanes are natural. Others, like the $160 billion savings and loan crisis in the 80s, are man-made. Taking advantage of that disaster where 5 politicians, but they're almost universally referred to as one. So this is the next one,
right.
The Keating 5.
And Nagin blamed everything with Katrina
on George Bush.
On racism.
Oh, yeah,
it was
on
racist,
yeah.
Right? Because it was a chocolate city.
Yeah,
right.
But he was like scamming the city and making money for himself and his friends.
But
and stuff
I bet you
if
he ran for office, he would get
elected
he probably
again. Would. Well, except he's serving a prison sentence
when he gets out.
So then this gets into it says the $160 billion savings and loan crisis talks about the Keating 5. Those are some ugly people. Is that John McCain?
That looks like John McCain.
Oh. Far from $1.3 million back in '89. To the tune of $2.5 million today. Far from the warm and friendly institution depicted in It's a Wonderful Life, savings and loan by the 80s had become cesspools of risky investments and corruption. None was worse than Charles Keating's Lincoln Savings and Loan in California, which collapsed in 1989, leaving thousands of investors penniless. How did Keating get away with it for so long? 5 U.S. senators intervened with regulators on his behalf in exchange for lavish campaign contributions. The Senate Ethics Committee issued a formal reprimand to California Democrat Alan Cranston and criticized Democrats Dennis DeConcini of Arizona, Donald Regal of Michigan for acting improperly. Democrat John Glenn of Ohio, I'm guessing that's not the astronaut, and Republican John McCain of Arizona were cleared of wrongdoing, but the committee formally criticized them for poor judgment. McCain, the only member of the Keating 5 still in office at the time of this article, he's not now, hopefully, maybe he is now.
They might elect him again.
Has said the affair taught him a painful lesson about conflicts of interest. The Keating 5 are all senators, but the other side of the Capitol, the House of Representatives, is hardly free of crooks. So then this gets into the next one. So you had heard of the '89 one?
Yeah.
I was 4 years old, so I mean I've heard of it.
Yeah,
but
I heard of it, but I didn't know much about it.
Randy Duke Cunningham, which this
you mentioned.
I did mention that earlier.
When you're talking about Menendez.
What the hell? I keep getting MSM or CNBC pop-ups. Randy Duke Cunningham. His scandal was bribery and corruption in 2004 and 2005, worth $3 million today. Decorated Navy flying ace with dashing good looks and the nickname Duke, it seemed like Randall Cunningham of California. A lot of these are from California.
Yeah, go figure.
Had it all when he came to Congress in '91. But like so many crooked politicians, it wasn't enough. As a member of the House Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, the Republican congressman had a line on some of the most lucrative government contracts, and he used that to his advantage. There was the defense contractor who purchased Cunningham's San Diego home for nearly twice its market value, then allowed him to live rent-free on a yacht.
Wow.
So it's not just making a mortgage payment like Menendez. It's I'll buy your house from you.
Yeah, for twice
what it's worth, and then you can live on my yacht rent free. There were other favors, cash payments, a Rolls Royce, and more. In 2005, this was the guy that Is this the guy that stuffed money in the fridge, in the freezer?
No,
that was Jefferson.
Yeah.
That was something Jefferson. There was cash payments, Rolls-Royce, and more. In 2005, Cunningham pled guilty to accepting $2.4 million in bribes, making him... Oh, this was the guy that pretty much said... called it like the favor factory.
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
It says, making him arguably the most crooked congressman in history. He served an 8-year prison sentence and today reportedly lives in Arkansas. So this gets into the next one. While Washington may be teeming with crooks, some of the wildest scams occur in state capitals. Number 7, Edwin W. Edwards, $4.6 million worth of racketeering and extortion. 4-time governor of Louisiana, back to Louisiana, once famously boasted that the only way he could lose an upcoming election was if I'm caught in bed with a dead girl or a live boy. He seemed equally invincible in the courts, beating 24 different corruption cases against him since the early days of his career in the 70s. But on the 25th case, his luck ran out. In 98, a federal grand jury indicted him for a scheme to extort millions of dollars in payments for casino license and estate. Edwards was convicted on 17 counts and spent more than 8 years in prison, but he wasn't done with public life just yet. 2014, at the age of 87, he tried to stage one more political comeback. With his 35-year-old wife, he's 87.
Holy crap.
Running for Congress. Says Trina, and their 1-year-old son.
Holy crap.
That is so gross. Derek asked, how many immigrants could they house on that yacht?
Yeah.
With his 35-year-old wife and his 1-year-old son by his side, Edwards announced he was running for Congress. It wasn't meant to be, however, and with his loss, the most colorful career in Louisiana politics came to an end. Or did it?
Well, he's still alive. He's still kicking.
Yeah. Number 6, Paul Powell. The shoebox scandal from 65 to 70, so it was $800,000 back then, worth $4.8 million today. Now this one gets into, we talked about California. We got to talk about one of the most corrupt states, Illinois, who has had 4 governors in the last X amount of years serve prison time. No list of crooked politicians would be complete without a visit to Illinois, where 4 governors since 1968 wound up in prison. And I think this is old. There's probably a 5th since then.
Yeah, probably. Well, yeah.
Because Blagojevich.
Yeah, Blagojevich is in jail.
Or was in jail. I don't know if he still is or not. And I don't know when this article came out. It says, perhaps the most brazenly corrupt Illinois public official was Secretary of State Paul Powell, once quoted saying, there's only one thing worse than a defeated politician, and that's a broke one.
Wow.
For Powell, those were words to live by. Illinois residents applying for driver's license in the 60s would make their checks payable not to the state, but to the Secretary of State, Paul Powell.
Wow.
Oh, my God. Naturally, Powell took that literally. Now, I've seen this, and I don't know if it's from my time growing up, and I've seen where, you make your payment to the Secretary or Treasury, like the state treasury of the Secretary. I don't know if it's got his name on it. Okay. Now, they probably took that off, but you'll make it to like county treasurer or something like that. Right. But I've never, maybe I just haven't paid attention. I've never seen the county treasurer take that literally and be like, well, I'm the county treasurer.
It comes to me.
But yeah, they probably stopped putting their name on it after that. It says, naturally, Powell took that literally. Add in a healthy dose of Illinois patronage, and Paul Powell was set for life. When he died of a heart attack in 1970, investigators found $800,000 in cash in his Springfield hotel room, much of it stuffed in shoeboxes. Sounds kind of like Menendez. Yep. A few months later, Illinois Senator Adlai Stevenson III famously quipped, Paul Powell left behind some pretty big shoeboxes to fill. And then, so that's it for that one. It says, while people in Illinois may have come to expect their elected officials may turn out to be crooks, voters in many other parts of the country still have high expectations. That can make a fall from grace all the more stunning. Derek says, yeah, just go ahead and write that registration fee out to cash. Thanks. Kwame M. Kilpatrick.
His name's familiar.
Detroit's crime boss mayor from 2002 to 2008.
Okay, yeah.
Scandal worth $5 million today. Considering a rising Democratic star and celebrated as the hip-hop mayor after he took office in Detroit's 68th mayor in 2002, Kwame Kilpatrick quickly set out building a criminal enterprise in City Hall. Some of his antics may have even helped set the stage for Detroit's historic bankruptcy in 2013. Interesting.
Wow.
Profiled in 2014 episode of American Greed, Kilpatrick was dogged by scandal almost from the start, from rumors of wild parties at his taxpayer-funded residence to hundreds of thousands of dollars in unexplained deposits to his personal bank account. In 2013, a federal jury in Detroit convicted him on 24 counts in what prosecutors called an astonishing scheme to establish a pay-for-play scheme, fleecing city contractors and taxpayers for his personal gain. Kilpatrick, serving a 28-year prison sentence, has appealed his case to the Supreme Court. Wow. The next three are more historical, and they were all presidents.
Of course.
Warren G. Harding, $400,000 for the Teapot Dome, worth $5.3 million today. Says he was never personally implicated, and most of the details emerged after his death, but the Teapot Dome forever sullied the reputation of the 29th president. Widely considered the granddaddy of American political scandals, the scheme was fairly tame and straightforward by today's standards. The real villain is Harding's Interior Secretary Albert Fall, a member of the so-called Ohio Gang. Says he was accused of accepting nearly $400,000 in bribes in exchange for oil leases in Wyoming. See, that's pretty tame.
Yeah.
Fall became the first former cabinet member in history to be sent to prison for crimes committed while in office. Then there was Richard Nixon. Do we need to really go into Richard Nixon's Watergate scandal?
Money off Watergate? I didn't know he made money. It was just like listening to political adversaries.
Let's see. Nixon funneled as much as $500,000 in campaign funds to the Watergate burglars. So there's that. Ulysses S. Grant, number 2, ran a whiskey ring in 1871 to 1875 for the tone of $3 million back then, now worth $63.7 million.
I thought he was kind of a wuss.
Corruption was so rampant in the 18th U.S. president's administration, it became known as Grantism. That means there are plenty of Grant scandals to choose from. But the most notorious one, and the one that came closest to the president himself, involved a scheme to siphon millions of dollars in whiskey tax revenue from the U.S. Treasury. I'm fine with that.
Yeah,
I'm absolutely fine with that. Conspiracy was vast, involving revenue agents, distillers, and politicians. The president was not directly involved. In fact, he ordered the raids that eventually broke up the ring. But he conveniently waited until after his 1872 re-election to do so. He may also have lied to cover up the action of his personal secretary, Orville Babcock, who was one of the 350 people indicted in the scandal, but was eventually acquitted, in part because the president personally vouched for him. Number 1 was William M. Boss Tweed. William Tweed was a president? They said the next 3 were president. The next 3 were, we just kind of skipped Nixon. So the Tammany Hall, or the Tweed Ring, 1869 to 1877. So he scammed anywhere between $6 million to $200 million of that day, which is worth almost $4.3 billion today. William Mager Tweed was a prodigious crook elected to Congress before he turned 30. But the real money was at home in New York, where he would soon return to begin his climb to the top of the city's powerful democratic machine known as Tammany Hall. Boss Tweed became a wealthy man and one of the city's biggest landowners. Thanks to some fairly basic scams, such as allowing overbilling befavored contractors, rampant patronage, and accepting plenty of well-placed bribes and kickbacks. But in one of the early triumphs of the investigative reporting, a series of reports by the New York Times beginning in 1871 helped bring down the Tweed Ring. Tweed was eventually convicted on hundreds of criminal charges, and New York City successfully sued him for $6 million. But the money, believed to be a fraction of what he and his cronies actually stole, was long gone. He died in jail at the age of 55, secure in the knowledge that he had stolen more than any American public official ever before or since. Wow. So what do you think of all these? I mean,
I don't know what's more shocking, that or that the New York Times actually reported on.
I was thinking that too.
too.
that would actually break the news of specifically like a Democrat politician, and now the New York Times is probably being paid off by all of them.
Yeah,
so
they're just bearing whatever Biden gives them.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I like the Illinois driver's license fee one the best. That's my favorite. That guy's a freaking moron. Like, how did he think he wasn't going to get caught doing that?
So these checks actually came to you.
I mean, you're either like you think you're super smart, or you're really freaking stupid.
Maybe he just thought he could play dumb, be like, well, what? I'm the treasurer.
It says my name on it. I just cashed the checks with my name on it. And that's definitely Illinois politics in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And we all know Obama came from there, so I don't know.
Well, all these all these states that are implicated in these are states that are well known for their corruption.
Right, right, exactly. So, I don't know. Is Louisiana a Democrat-ran state?
Yeah.
So they're all Democrat-ran states. You had New York, you had Michigan, Illinois, California, a lot of California, a lot of Louisiana.
Yeah, yeah.
So, what's your favorite out of all of them?
Man, I think Ray Nagin always has a soft spot in my heart.
Yeah?
Yeah, just because, he was pointing fingers at everybody else.
Which
during
one was
Katrina.
he was the Katrina guy, yep.
And, everybody else's inefficiency, everybody's ineptitude except for his own.
George Bush is racist.
Right, yeah.
That whole...
He hates black people.
I think that was actually Kanye that said that.
Ironically.
But still. So, I all this to say, they're all corrupt.
Yeah, and it's been going on
since the beginning of time.
Right, yeah.
Pretty much. Since a long time ago, at least.
And we've only gotten worse. It's so much easier to hide corruption the bigger the government gets.
So all this, wrap this all up. Is there any hope then to get somebody that can clean up, drain the swamp, or get like a Josh Smith in there on a party of vengeance or whatever?
The romantic in me says yes.
Yeah, but in reality, the reality of you.
The reality, it's been happening a long time, and they just keep getting richer and richer.
I think we brought this up a couple weeks ago. Tar and Feather, can we bring it back? Tar and Feather?
I think we should. I really do.
Like, I feel like that the corruption level spiked when we did away with tar and feather and politicians.
Yes. I'm down with that. I think we should.
Where do you find hot tar these days?
I just think there should be zero tolerance.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
because drag them out of the office. Exactly. We talked about it last week. Just drag them out of the freaking office. Like, we don't have to do impeachment trials. We don't have to wave. Just go in there and just drag them out.
Take them to the town square, throw some tar and some feathers.
Yes, exactly. Perfect. I love it. You got any final thoughts on this? We are over our 2 hour mark.
I think we tackled this one pretty good.
Yes. What do you think of Bob Menendez's jacket pockets full of cash?
I'm a little jealous.
Do you think he's gonna get? Do you think he gets convicted this time?
I think he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you saw that one politician went 24 times.
Yeah.
With no convictions before he finally was.
I think
brought
that.
down.
I think they're going to use him as a sacrificial lamb.
Think so?
Yeah.
What about Adam Schiff? Do you think he?
I think he gets away with it.
Yeah. I think Adam Schiff just keeps being Adam Schiff.
Yeah.
And probably gets like awards and stuff. So.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Let us know what you think about all this corruption and bullshit. The comment section's always open. You can hit us up on the X and Facebook and everywhere at the handle @BreakTheBellPod. You can find links to all the shit we do at BreakTheBellPod.com. Make sure you check it out. Share it with your grandmas again, because that's our key demographic.
Yes.
Is grandmas right now.
And we really are looking for power and fame.
Yeah, power and fame, because that's the type of
personalities we have.
Predisposition we have. Yes, we are narcissists. Who else is going to sit here and just talk and listen to yourself talk unless you're a narcissist?
Exactly.
So, so give us the power that we crave, because by sharing with your grandmas.
Yes.
And that's the end of it. So, have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you next week, hopefully.
Peace.
Goodbye.
The Break the Bell podcast is brought to you by you. So pat yourself on the back because without you, we would be talking to ourselves. A special thanks to our Patreon members, Justin Zielinski, Remzo Martinez, Stephanie Parker, and T.O. Jacobson. A shout out to our sponsors, Run Your Mouth Coffee, the On the Run podcast, and Goulash Media. If you'd like to help support us, visit patreon.com/breakthebell or buy our garbage at breakthebell.bigcartel.com. Get back here next week and let us continue to invade your ear holes. And as always, never stop talking.